this. I'm Keith.
I'm Kyle.
Producer Josh.
It's Travis.
So today I have a topic to bring up. It's about talent, and there's a number of ways I've thought about this over the years, but here's how I'm going to say it today. I say that the best basketball player ever has never actually picked up a basketball.
That is quite the premise.
Like, just specifically basketball?
I mean, you can apply to anything else.
Okay.
But we'll use
my
basketball.
I'd like it to be clarified.
So yeah. So what?
Hey, for real though, the best basketball player ever never picked up a baseball bat until Michael Jordan did. So
Amen. Amen.
So here's what I'm thinking about talent. I think we often overestimate the effect talent has on how successful something is. So when we have this discussion about who's the best basketball player ever, like it's always in the context of like, oh, it's Kobe Bryant, it's Michael Jordan, it's LeBron James, like specific people who are already playing basketball. And obviously that they have talent. I'm not saying that they don't, but we often overemphasize their natural talent in a field, and that's what makes them the best, or that's what makes them successful. And I think that has little to do with what makes someone successful in any given field.
So are you also asking then? Are you asking the question is why are those guys? Why are Kobe? Why are Jordan?
Right.
Why are LeBron? Why are those guys the best?
Right.
Why are
So
they?
what makes
is it
them
simply because they're the most
Right.
talented?
What makes them successful, and I think we often assume it's their talent. And I say that has very little to do with it, or a lot less to do with it than we all.
Would you say it's more based on like opportunity?
I mean, there's a bunch of things that can go into it. So opportunity is going to be one. I think you hear all the stories about all three of those guys, and one of the things that always stands out is their work ethic. So how much effort they put in. I think there's a personality trait of like obsessiveness as well. That's part of success.
What drives me nuts is this isn't talent, this is obsession, or this isn't talent, this is hard work. I hate that phrase because it's, if anything, it's both and.
Right.
And more. There's more going on. There is, if you look at, say, even like a Steph Curry, you go, Steph Curry, because of who his father was, he had access to some of the best coaches and camps. And so that, he does have the talent. Is he the most talented? We won't even go there yet. But is he the most talented? He might be the most talented, but he also had one of the greatest opportunities.
Right.
Sure.
So before we say who is, we got to look at like, because we've decided that the person with the most rings, or however we want to define it, is the most talented, which that would be Robert Horry. So today he has 13 rings. So you can't, even that conversation.
did he score that half-court shot against the Sacramento Kings?
No, that was Derek Fisher.
Okay.
0.4.
Yeah.
Right. So I know that wasn't half quarter, but
the switch
But
fish.
but Horry did have a bunch of clutch threes in that.
No, yeah, he was integral in, but
not all those rings.
No.
Yeah.
Not all 13 of them. That's for sure.
He cheered.
Yeah.
But you look at, even if you want to, most people are going to argue and discuss Jordan, LeBron, and Kobe for the most part.
Right.
For whatever reason, they like to leave out Wilt Chamberlain and those guys. You're like, wait, why?
Scored 100 points in a game once.
Yeah, and you're like, oh, he was tall. You're like, there's a lot of tall guys in the NBA.
Well, and but that even goes to like the point. I mean, maybe it doesn't, but like the idea is that there's so much, there's more goes into success. And I think what what I'm pushing back against is that talent doesn't equal success. That's what I would say, that we've sort of made that equation, and I don't think that.
And success doesn't equal the most talented.
Right, exactly.
So but in this discussion, so to define terms, is most people enter into the discussion is, well, I like Kobe more than I like Jordan, and that's why, because you didn't grow up in the Jordan era.
Right.
I like Kobe more than I like LeBron, and then you say, look how many rings Kobe has, and then someone goes, look how many finals he's been doing. You're like, all right, hold on.
Yeah.
Back up.
Right.
What are you guys even arguing? Are you arguing for your opinion on just who you prefer? Because I can adhere to the fact that Kobe is one of the most insane basketball players to ever live, period. But I'd rather watch LeBron.
Right.
And so I just prefer LeBron. I enjoy LeBron. But I'm not going to say, oh, Kobe's not as good as LeBron is.
Right.
I don't even, before you even get into that, you gotta first answer that question. And so when you get into this idea of talent, and is what goes into someone, because there is talent involved.
Right.
Oh, of course, yeah,
But,
definitely.
But so the most talented person, that doesn't mean they're going to have the most success.
Right. Well, and I think the other thing is, and I think part of it is this thing we've talked about was one of the other things was opportunity. It's like, so if you look at across the globe, there's what, 7.5, 8 billion people. Statistically, the person who would actually be naturally the best at a thing maybe doesn't even come close to being able to do the thing, right? So basketball is largely an American sport in the
Yeah.
United States, right? So the best basketball player may be some kid in India.
So you're saying
Right?
that,
I mean, that, or,
yeah.
or
So
some
you're
kid
so
in,
you're saying
in like Lithuania, and like they're never gonna play basketball because that's not part of their culture.
yeah. So what you're saying is that based on like the ratio of like professional basketball players to people,
Right.
that it's a good chance that not only does the best basketball player not play in any professional league, but
Right.
has maybe never even played basketball.
Right. That's exactly. And so what I'm saying is I'm positing that extreme premise
is it me?
because yeah. Have you picked up a basketball?
Or
So-
Josh.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, right.
but the point, I guess, what I'm saying is that, and because that's even before we get into within the United States, social and economic opportunity as well. So like we haven't even unpacked that. Why some people may have access to a certain thing and certain activities are more expensive. So people who can't afford it can't be part of that. Whatever that is. I'm saying just sheer statistics say that has to be that whoever would naturally be the most talented has never picked up the basketball, right? I mean, the likelihood that that's the case is more likely than the other one, is that they have picked up the basketball and are playing in the NBA.
I get that. That just seems very far to go.
There
You know
was-
what I mean?
Well, yes,
Like-
right, of course.
Well,
and I'm only pausing it to push the idea that we overestimate talent.
There was a documentary on about in the Middle East how like they weren't allowed to produce certain types of music, and so these kids have been watching metal bands on like MTV. They've been seeing like As LA Dying and a lot of these like modern heavy metal bands, and they're As LA Dying, bad example.
We'll go with it.
But yeah, so like this started this whole underground movement of like metal bands playing in basements in like Iraq and Iran and places like that, and there was a movement to shut this down, but then like these kids were like getting so big, and so like people were actually paying for them to come over to America and create music
Right.
for them. But if they hadn't have done that, if they hadn't been exposed to like metal in our culture,
Right.
they would have never known that they were good at this stuff.
Yeah, and I think that's so because what's really underneath this question for me is like, if we're gonna say someone is the best, right? So whenever I've heard this conversation, and again, it's a lot of times when I'm watching like the sports commentary show, so it's like, who's the best ever? It's like my question is always like, well, what does it mean to be the best? Like when we're saying someone is the best. What are some of the assumptions that we're making, right? And I think one of the big ones is, well, this person is the most talented. I think part of that, there's this myth that we all like to think about. It's like, oh, if I were just naturally gifted enough, someone would come recognize me and all that. Like I don't have to put in the work and all. And
I mean, that's
what have
part
you.
of it.
Yeah. Okay. What's else? What else is part of it?
I mean,
I know that there are.
no,
other
but
things,
I'm saying like I don't think the talent part is a myth in terms of like people,
Oh, yes,
in terms
yeah.
of like people finding you.
No, what I meant is that we want to believe that that's it. That's why we're not successful. It's like, oh, I'm just not talented. Like I don't have that talent.
I think
not
it's-
that. Oh, I could have been. Maybe I could have been that because I would have liked to. I didn't, but I didn't want to work as hard.
So then you got to go off the kid that is,
Sure.
or the person that is okay. So there's the talented. Why didn't the talented kid
Right.
make it? Or to kind of point Josh's example with music is if you've never been exposed to.
Yeah, I was gonna say that the exposure and the opportunity.
If the ball never rolled by you to pick up,
Right.
So we can easily go, yeah, that's a possibility.
Right.
That's definitely a possibility, which more so enters, I think, into a discussion of talent doesn't always equal success.
Right.
There's a
Right.
lot of different variables that have to happen. So for that talented person to be a success, again,
Right.
work ethic is
Yes.
huge. I used to play basketball in Venice Beach all the time, and a buddy of mine grew up there. He was the one who introduced me to Venice and would take me up there every weekend. He knew everybody in the back alleys and on the court. He used to be a big drug dealer out there, and then got clean, and he knew everybody.
Did he still sell drugs after he was clean?
Numb, just he did away with the whole lifestyle.
Okay.
He in turn started a nonprofit and did a really cool thing for the world. And so basically,
Yeah, Josh, stop making jokes.
No. Hey, some people, man.
yeah, he's my
That's not what
friend.
we do here.
It's not the weirdest thing that's ever
We
happened.
don't approach topics with complete irreverence.
It's my friend Josh.
I'm a leave, guys.
That's my friend.
So it's interesting. He would tell me stories about guys that we were playing basketball with that should have made it.
Right.
And then he would tell me about the 3 reasons why they didn't. Now, whether or not they were going to make it is a whole other question. But he talked about the things that they chose to do
Right.
instead of what they needed to do to go to the next level, to potentially go to what we have decided is the elite of the elite, was the NBA or MLB or whatever, top of the charts with music.
Right.
And so you go, well, okay, that doesn't mean though, because these guys, some of them were just like, oh my gosh, yeah, like, can you miss?
Right.
Can you miss? And so you're like, you're thinking, this guy should be, and you're like, well, why do we automatically go, he's so good, he should be?
Right.
And so I guess that's my question is, or I guess the question we're asking is
Right.
how does one, what are all the variables that get you to that place? And sometimes it gets even, you could get even into the fashion world is why did their clothing line get picked up? Well, because the person that goes out to these trade shows and as a buyer goes, I like your line.
Right.
We're gonna sell you at Bloomingdale's.
Right, so it's just
There's
about
a sense of chance
opportunity.
too. Right. There is a fair amount of randomness to it as well. I mean, not just who you're born to, like, but who your parents are in terms of like Kobe Bryant and Steph Curry, or the natural talent you might have, or where you're, like, whether you have access to something. But also, it could just be it's just there's a chance that someone noticed you.
Yeah.
In a like, to your point, like, you happen to be in the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
And that someone noticed you and they liked what you did, and that translated to them picking you up, and that person might have had more influence over the
these
whole
scout-
industry than maybe someone else might have, right?
Well, yeah, and I think you have these scouts out there for all major league sports and even college sports.
Right.
And so they go, okay, well, my school or my team is in this area. And so for a professional team, they usually have, scouts all over the country
Regional
that are
scouts.
regional scouts. And they might have something, they have like a set of a criteria,
Right.
that they're looking for this type of person,
Right.
both on and off the court though.
Right.
So sometimes you look in and you're like, hey, we'll take anyone who's good, but then you have another organization goes, how does he treat his wife?
Right.
So the reason I got in
so
wasn't
that could have factored into
Yeah,
like
exactly.
the guys from Venice.
Ethics and morals.
yeah, so
and,
I go, I don't want that guy. He's representing our organization. There's a guy that's just as good as him,
If
who
not
is-
better.
if not better, but also he's a stand-up guy. His past isn't,
Right.
and so you even have guys. I knew a guy who got picked up from, I think, in soccer. No one came to look at him. They were looking at all these other stars at his school, but every year he progressed, and especially in
Right.
soccer, if not everything, is there a progression here?
Right.
Is this guy continue to get better?
Right. And then, so there's a sense of passion and drive to it too, like the desire to get better. So there's some people, that's actually, there's probably a good number of people who are naturally talented that end up not making it because they rest on their talent and they don't, like, to your point, they don't progress. So sometimes there could be situations where talent can actually hurt you because you're so good at it, you're not gonna push yourself. And so it's like,
So-
so that you're good early and then people catch up to you and you don't progress past it.
So the reason the greatest basketball player to ever live is not playing is because no one has tapped that talent.
Right.
In a sense,
Or,
or
yeah.
you know what I mean?
Right,
It's
yeah,
like
yeah, 'cause no
to
one's
make
got
it
that
simple.
talent.
No one has
Or-
pushed him to like
or
increase
or
that.
they
talent.
don't want to. They
Or
don't
he
wanna
could have
play.
been-
They want to play soccer instead, but they
He-
want to be a poet.
He
You know
could
what
have
I
been
mean?
the best lacrosse player to ever live, but he lives in the inner city of Chicago. And
Right,
they don't do
exactly.
that there. So,
I-
right? Yeah.
I
Or,
do-
or cricket, and he lives in America, or rugby player, and he lives, like, whatever. There's a whole bunch of things. So-
Well, you're
Right,
getting into
culture
culture. You're
as
getting
well.
into
Yeah, it's like, I mean, you could get into anything. Like, for example, this is like even outside of the world of sports.
Yeah.
A while ago, Apple was getting so many applications
Right.
that they eventually said the only applications we are going to accept are applications from people who have been referred by a current employee. So,
right.
how many people could they have potentially missed out on
Right.
because maybe they're the best programmer in the world, but they don't know anybody that works for Apple?
What's funny is last night I talked to a buddy of mine owns a spot over in Belmont Shore, and he said anytime I see your name on a reference, they're hired
Yeah.
because I make the best lattes, Cal. That's simply because I was a great employee for him.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
and I did a great job
Exactly.
for him, and he goes, he said literally, it's like as long as they can speak,
Yeah.
and your name's on their reference. He's like, I think I have, and we're
Right.
buddies, and he's like,
Yeah.
I esteem you, and so therefore, and so you're looking at it, and
Right.
talent is, I mean, think about all these no talent superstars.
Right.
As long as I can package you, they have talent, but you're like, they're not that great.
Well, they're not the best,
but
so
they
that's
fit
what I'm
into a
saying.
mold.
Right,
They
exactly.
fit into a mold within
and that was another thing I'm
Hollywood.
thinking.
Or,
Exactly. So it's less. It's also less how good you are and how good are you at what they need you
the,
to be good
the
at.
most,
right?
the most, the most,
So we
the
talk-
best looking guy of the year
Right.
is not the best looking guy.
Yeah.
He happened to have the greatest film.
Oh, Trav and I talked a lot about
What?
this.
Yeah,
About people's the like sexiest
No,
man.
it wasn't. He wasn't in a film. It was Blake Shelton. He's a musician, right?
Yeah, Blake Shelton.
He's another. Wrong.
Who are you talking about, though?
All of them.
Oh,
all
okay.
of them. They all get on.
Okay, there are certain ones that are
Except
just
Brad Pitt.
the most handsome people.
They're some of the most, yes, but you go, the main reason is because he's popular or she's
Right.
popular.
Exactly.
So it's less about their aesthetic, their true aesthetic beauty, simply because it
you mean their
is-
objective beauty?
Thank you, Keith.
Oh,
I didn't
came
want
back
to go
around.
there.
But it's more about like how hot are they like in the spotlight right now.
Yeah.
Also.
Absolutely. They're gonna get the
filling-
cover.
They're filling a need, right?
Yeah.
They're filling a cultural or a social need. and
Well,
that's-
I'm gonna buy that because everyone's going to his movie.
Right.
So I'm gonna put you on my cover because I want more sales.
Right.
So now you even get into
Unless
all right,
unless you're James Franco, in which case you're removed from the cover of Vanity Fair magazine.
Hey, yeah, not our last, the 2 episodes ago.
2 episodes. Yeah. Did you guys see that cover though?
Yeah, I
Oprah
didn't see
Winfrey
it, but I
has
heard
3
about it,
hands.
Yeah. Yeah.
no, I didn't.
Look it up. It's funny.
But so you do. I think in all of life is why do certain people have positions in this
Right.
world is because they know somebody, or because how many
Or they're in the right
guys
place at the
are,
right time, or
how many managers out there in companies are the worst.
managers?
The worst. I feel like most of them. I was talking to my brother about this, and sometimes it's because those guys desire power the most,
Right.
their position.
Exactly.
And so the reason they're there is and they don't care. They don't care
but
to be
to-
good. They just
right.
care to get into the position.
Right. So, like, to some point, like, we go back to the basketball thing. It's like the reason why Kobe Bryant's one of the best basketball players ever is because he really, really, really wanted to be one of the best basketball players ever.
Yes.
And so he worked until he was. Do you know
Plus,
what I mean?
though, plus-
talent, plus opportunity,
Size.
plus size. Right. Of course, all
Yeah,
this stuff.
he comes.
But, like,
He comes
but
from
one
a
of the reasons
background.
is that there's some. Usually, my guess is that when someone is considered the best at something, is that they wanted to be the best, and it doesn't mean maybe they wanted it for good reasons or bad reasons, but there was something in them that like, I want to do this thing, and so I'm going to work at it. And there's all these other factors that I already have, right? So there's.
Yeah, there's not this one.
No,
there's
it's
not
not a
this
one
one
thing. No, it's not.
thing, and you even get into Kobe Bryant's intelligence. That guy
Right.
is.
Right.
That guy is. He is in line to be the next Zen Phil Jackson kind of mind.
No, I think he's in line to be the next Bond villain.
Yeah.
You've seen how he dresses?
Yes.
He dresses like a Bond
But
villain.
he is so their IQ, not just
Yeah.
in the NBA,
No, right.
but is these guys
Right.
saw something and they said, okay, this is why he's an interesting study for Mayweather. Mayweather
Mm-hmm.
is a genius.
Right.
Everyone goes, he can't read. You're like, yeah, but like,
There's a lot of people that can't read.
yeah, but
That's
he
true.
has a lot more
Yeah.
than you do, and success, and he figures out a way to keep going.
Right.
He hasn't had to move out of his mansion, even though he went bankrupt or whatever happened. You're just going,
The best thing was like him posting his check for like $350 million and was like, "Can you read this?" I was like, "I'm so bored."
yeah, but and so you look at even his
Yeah.
life. He grew up around boxers.
Right.
He grew up in a family that literally told him every day, "You are the best."
Right.
So that shapes how he thinks of himself.
Right.
So you get in front of someone and go, "I'm already the best, so I'm going to win." There is something to say about mindset, and then you go, "He's obviously gifted. He's obviously talented." You have to have that, but then he has an insane work ethic.
Right.
He'll wake up. He's not. They say he's nocturnal. He'll be working out. He wakes his whole team up at 3 a.m. and he's like, "We're going to the gym. Let's go." He's doing row work. He is. I think is it nocturnal, whatever he is. But
Top man.
maybe I don't know. I don't know.
Nocturnal is like a term for like animals
he, like,
who
works
are
at- like,
awake
he awakes at
at
night
night and sleep during the day.
I think he does that.
Maybe.
Okay.
He's not an animal, but
No, I was like,
or whatever. I don't know. Lucy,
Right, doesn't
whatever.
matter, doesn't
So
matter.
the point being is he is obsessed.
Right.
He is obsessed because he knows how to. But then you see what he does in the ring. What all
Right.
What all announcers would say, what all experts would say is he knows how to adjust.
Right.
So he basically does an intake on you in the first few rounds,
Right.
and then he goes, "Okay, I figured out how to
Right.
beat you." That is something you can't
Well,
necessarily
and
teach.
I was not only you can't teach it because a lot of it, and this is one thing we haven't even talked about. It also comes from experience too. So
Exactly.
doing it over and over and over again has less to do with talent.
Has a lot of
nothing
merit.
to do with talent.
Yes.
But it has to do like
The 10,000 hour.
right. He knows what to do in any given situation. So he is just better than you right now because he's seen
been there
He's
before.
seen what you're doing. So he's like, I know how to beat that.
Okay, so that's actually I had a question for you guys. Do you think that talent can be developed with practice?
No, yeah.
I don't know. So this is where. The
Well,
other
is that
question
talent or is that
right,
something else?
Right. So the point is, there's a rawness to there's a raw ability, and I call that talent, whether we want to call that talent or not. But you can develop skills. There are certain skills that are repetitive muscle memory skills that you can develop, and that will in any sport or any thing, even non-sport, you can develop over time. And so that's, if you want to call that talent, sure, that's still part of that's
Well,
what
let's
makes someone talented.
for the sake
Okay,
of
yeah.
argument let's just whether
follow
they're
you.
correct definitions or not. But you go, okay, that raw talent.
That's
yes,
raw
that
ability
raw
is talent.
ability to do this well. Then there is with anything is okay. So if you look at t-ball, you have all these little kids around there, and most of the time they're picking their butt right and turning around in the outfield. But you quickly can see who is gifted or talented.
Right.
They still need to be trained and given the skill set, the fundamentals.
So training, I guess. Right.
But like
Okay.
fundamentals will only take one so far unless you have the talent.
Right.
If you have the skill, like so you take Bo Jackson.
Yeah.
Bo Jackson literally practice he thought it was silly.
Because he
Not like Iverson. He literally.
what's up, Iverson?
But Allen Iverson didn't need to show up to practice anymore because he probably maybe because his whole life of I know what to do. I don't
Right.
need to do this.
Well, that's also assuming he never.
Practice. Like
never
he
practiced
always
outside of the
but-
official practice,
But when
which
you
is
have a guy like
ridiculous
Bo
to think.
Jackson, when he gets to this point, he actually ended up his first passion was baseball.
Right.
Then he was like, I'm bored, or I just want to for fun. I'm gonna go play in the NFL also and dominate that league.
Well, and there is a point at which someone is so talented they don't need to practice as much.
Absolutely.
That they've already have the training. So it's training and like that is to get skills down. If you already have the skills, you don't need to practice.
like someone like Allen Iverson, who's like, I don't need the practice that like other guys on this team need.
Right.
Yeah,
He
because
was saying that, and people are like, that's so arrogant. It's like, no, that's true.
Look at the
Like, he's
stats.
just- he's
Right.
just good.
Yeah.
but so part of that is, he did train and he developed skills and I think it's easier to, I don't know if you would say catch on or to pick up
Right.
the skill set needed to perform.
Would you consider that a talent though, to like absorb information
Yeah,
and be able to
I think
repeat it?
so. I mean, that means okay. So we can say like,
So
for
ability?
me, for me, I've always had a natural ability. I've always had a natural ability to look at a text, look at a book, a novel, something like that, and understand what's going on. That I know other people don't have because I've talked to them about it, right? So
Right.
I noticed. That was something from a very young age that I was able to do. Now I've also had 20 plus years of training doing this.
Right.
And now I can recognize something that I know that part of that is part of my natural ability, but a lot of it is I've read these books and I've studied this way of looking. So it's like there's both, but I've always had that natural ability, but I've also been able to absorb when someone tells me how to. So when I study literary theory and criticism, I can grasp that a little bit easier and quicker than other people.
All right,
So that's I think it's both.
So the greatest basketball player to ever live isn't in the NBA, but if he's 25 right now, he couldn't walk onto the court.
Yeah, he's no longer the greatest
He
basketball
he can't
Right.
walk onto the court because
exactly.
he needed to be tapped into at a certain
Right.
age,
player. At like 18.
at least, or at 8, or at 12. So
Yeah. So if you stripped everybody down to their raw talent, that dude is the most talented. But that's not why someone is in the NBA, right? That's almost never the reason why someone's in a professional sport or in a profession is because of is only because of their talent.
well, that's why I bring up Bo Jackson, because you
Right.
just see a guy that is raw talent, but what people often
Recognize
do
it, right.
is take away his raw intelligence. People take away how incredibly smart he is. That guy is a smart man. And so we narrow it down to, oh, he's just athletic.
Well, and so
Right.
here, while I think it's going to be you and I.
Yeah,
Um,
there you go, guys.
Keith has responsibilities,
Yeah.
unlike the rest of us, to a degree.
All right, see you guys.
Um,
But
Later.
Keith,
So here's the difference, I think, between athletics and like the entertainment industry. Is athletics, it's harder for it to be about who you know, because if you get out on the court and score 0 points, it doesn't matter who you know. If you can't play, you can't play.
I know the coach is like,
Um,
but you have no points.
But how often does like a band get to play SNL and you're like, oh, they're horrible.
Yeah.
Like, and I know obviously I'm speaking from a subjective standpoint.
Sure.
But even actually, but no.
No.
Actually, you know what? No.
No.
Because even from like I have heard a good voice. Like I
Yes.
know and I know what it sounds like. And I know not everybody can sing to that level, but then you go, but you're singing like down here. And
Yeah.
So
and
it's exposure then.
yeah,
is what
and
you're-
there's an objective.
Yeah.
I think there's an objective like catchiness to music,
Yeah.
and things like that. To where the entertainment industry now is, you go, I think maybe so the best rapper has never been discovered.
Yeah, well, and I think that's kind of his point, right? Keith's question is this actually transcends into all areas of life.
Right.
And so there was someone had told me, I never really listened to him, they told me about a band that pretty much just had a certain amount of talent. They had a certain and giftedness, whatever, but really what they had was they had connections, they had money, and they were willing to fit into the mold that was selling to the masses at that time.
I think that's the key too. Is
For certain things, but when it comes into say like rapping, so here it goes back to episode 1, guys. Is you just said it, there's an objective kind of thing going on where you go, okay, so you're telling me, because this is what we tell our society, kids especially in our society, is you could do whatever you want as long as you put in the work, which is simply not true. Not everyone can get into the NBA.
Right. I was going to talk about that. My least favorite thing in the world is hearing teachers say, you can do anything you set your mind to. You can't. You can't.
And that's
It's-
okay.
And that's fine. But like, even I've come across situations where like, people are saying, I am going to write a book because everyone keeps telling me that I can do it and I should do it. But then they end up writing this book and it's garbage.
Yeah. Well, because, and you know why, is maybe they have a different platform that they need to be a part of, but writing is not in them. Now, the question is, well, what if they wrote over and over and over and over and they hone the craft? The part that I get stuck on is I think some people can, for just using basketball, right, as our kind of
Right.
anchor is they could dribble a ball, they could take so many shots, but there's just something in them that they'll never get to that level, no matter what. The same thing is I can write. You can. A bunch of my buddies back in the day, as a joke, they would put on beats of famous songs and then rap over them.
yeah.
And the best part was listening to how terrible people were. And some guys are like, oh, that was pretty clever. But you're like, but you're not a rapper and you never will be.
Yeah.
Right.
It doesn't
yeah.
matter how much you do
Yeah,
this.
that was pretty clever.
Right.
Once.
Yeah, and it still wasn't good.
Yeah.
It wasn't good compared
Hey,
to him.
it was clever for like who you are.
yeah. In the setting that we're in.
We're lowering the standards here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you see this. It goes back to which is interesting to the question is that person, could that person exist? Yes, that person could, right? I was thinking about Jamaican bobsled team.
Yes.
Cool, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Cool Runnings. And so you're going, right, don't they win it or something? And whatever. I don't know if they win it,
Hey.
but they become competitors.
Fun fact:
Spoiler.
that movie would never be allowed to be made today because it's a white guy helping a bunch of black people score big in the Olympics. I was thinking about that. Mighty Ducks too. Like a lot of the stuff that they said in the Mighty Ducks, you would never get away with saying in a movie today,
I probably forget.
because they hinge jokes on racism. It's
Interesting.
crazy. If you ever go back and watch those from the early '90s.
So we're
Disney
moving
movies,
forward in the Human Project. I love
Yes.
it.
Yeah.
That's good. Hey,
Yeah. Cool Runnings is a great movie, though.
For
It's a
sure.
great
Yeah.
movie.
If you I don't care where you stand on those issues, but you should definitely watch it. It's good.
Well, Cool Runnings, I may be way off base here. That's a true story, isn't it?
It is a true story.
Okay.
I did not know that.
I mean, at what point is it true? But
But to the point is the average person in
yes.
Jamaica is not
I'm
does
pretty-
not have access
To ice, yeah.
to right to
Right.
training that type of training, nor do they as collectively as a nation, as a culture, that's not like what they tend to that's not where they gravitate towards, right?
Right.
When it comes to sports, the same way as you have all sorts of discussion about certain sports are very expensive. So hockey is an extremely expensive sport.
Oh, yeah.
So kids and families who come from a lower socioeconomic background, they're not going, you know what I think you should play, son? Hockey. They're just going, no, what's the cheapest sport I can sign up for? Because I want you to be in this.
like the most accessible.
Cross country.
Absolutely. And so if you think about it, if you want to kind of go there, but if you look across America, who's playing lacrosse? Who's playing hockey? Rich white kids for the most part, right?
It's true,
And
yeah.
so not to go down a rabbit trail, but
I was like, we are changing our
yeah, we are
subject
changing.
here.
But so you go, oh, okay. So when it comes to the talent thing, is it because these kids versus these kids, these different races are more talented in that? Like, no,
you
not
think-
necessarily. Now, but here's what I would say is maybe there are certain people groups that are collectively better at other things.
Do you think
Collectively,
talent?
and I think that would be fine.
Do you think talent is cultivated then, like in that sense? Like it's you have the opportunity to play it, and so that's how you discover you're good at it. Whereas
Could be, yeah. It could
Well,
be
of course,
part it,
that's how
yeah.
you discover
Expo-
is you try
exposure,
it.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
try
yeah.
it, but what is it? What is a kid who the country sport? Okay, so you go to Europe. What do they what do they care about? Soccer, and then maybe rugby, right?
Right.
So you look at like the team like the All Blacks, and you look at a great majority of the stature of man who plays rugby.
Yeah, that's New Zealand.
They're not
That's-
me.
That's
Right.
the New Zealand team, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
and so but then even around here in the Long Beach area, you have there's a rugby team. You have the Long Beach kind of club, and then you have the South Bay club. Well, man, I've seen some of those matches, and man, the South Bay team, I think there's a lot of the Samoan community, and those guys are just the strength.
Yeah.
No one's confused that they have strength, raw strength. And all of a sudden, that's not that's great. Why?
Yeah.
That's a great thing.
Yeah.
Right.
That group of people, they naturally are just they have a raw strength. So then the guys say and Long Beach has a lot of Samoan guys too. But you have like a lot of these white kids. Well, these white kids are like that are playing or from other races, black, Mexican, whatever. Is you got to be big to play that game.
Right.
And even if you're not tall, man, you better have something on you.
Right. You better have
Yeah.
something to contribute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so why is it that rugby isn't off? Like no one has a rugby team at their high school.
Right. I
It's
don't think they
because
do.
it's because that's not right. That's not what we do here.
Right.
That's not our pastime.
Right.
So yeah, that ends up cultivating and if you want to use that word is what do I even think I have an option in? Therefore, I'm not even going to try that. To Keith's point, is how many people out of fear are not doing something. So you go, man, the most talented or whatever, or if you just want to say he's like not going to be the most successful, but the most talented is too afraid to try.
Yeah.
Good point. Very good point.
Right, or to your point, is the greatest author to ever not write. Right, is he's too afraid because, or maybe he wrote everything and no one will ever know. In fact, he burns it before he
Or
dies.
he keeps it in a desk drawer. Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Because he's too afraid to try and get it published because of rejection. Where you have a Stallone who wrote Rocky and people were trying to get his script. Apparently, I think the story is, and he goes, "No, I'm going to eat ketchup and live in a van, and this is mine, and I believe in it."
Yeah.
And then look at him now. You know,
That was,
Yeah.
Arnold Schwarzenegger had the same kind of thing though. Like he invested in real estate early on because he was like, I don't want to take these B-roll actors. I believe that I could be a huge action star, and he just held out until that role came along, and then boom, look at him. He's like, Total Recall and
he has this
Terminator and all
incredible.
those. Yeah.
He had this incredible, actually they have a recent documentary out, Born Strong, and it's Arnold talking a lot, being interviewed a lot, and he talks about even his why he thought the way he thought, and how he became who he became had a lot to do with his upbringing and
Yeah.
the time in which he was born, what was happening in their nation, what was happening in those times. I was like, dang, that's fascinating. All of that shaped a lot of his mindset.
Yeah.
Right.
Man, this was good.
Yeah. Are we wrapping it up?
I mean, that's all I got.
I think Keith's question is pretty simple. Yeah, possibly.
Yeah.
Possibly. But really the question is, and I think we kind of tapped into it, and I think maybe we can even explore this on a maybe a deeper level, but is what are the things and how does one get into the place that they're at, or how do they become the most successful? I don't know. I think we can go a lot of different places with it, but at the end of the day, I think it's not just pure, their athleticism. There's a lot of different variables.
Opportunity is a huge one.
Yeah. We tapped into opportunity late in the conversation,
Yeah.
but you're because of your opportunity.
Yeah.
Simply put, where you're born, all that good stuff.
There's a girl from the Middle East, and like they have like maybe 2 or 3 hockey rinks where in that entire area, and she she picked up a stick one day, discovered she was good at hockey, and like they brought her over to kind of skate around with the pros a little bit, and she was like almost on par with a lot of these guys. So like it's true. You never know. Like you really don't.
Yeah. Crazy. Well, all
right, guys. Well, if you joined us on the live feed, thank you so much. This has been episode 17 of What About This? I'm sorry. I was editing something this morning, and then I was thinking about the wrong podcast.
It's funny. I was like, man, are we like a subset under like something else that I don't know about?
You can find us on iTunes, Podbean, podcast.com, Google Play, Stitcher. Follow us on social media at Twitter, and I don't think we have an Instagram, Facebook. You're obviously watching us on Facebook right now. If you have next time we do a live stream, if you want to send some questions our way, we'd be happy to answer them.
Sure.
Keith won't take his shirt off. We tried.
It's not gonna happen.
Yeah, sorry guys. But thank you for tuning in. We'll see you guys later.
Brink here from Super BS, talking about the things you know you love and the things you'd love to know. Join us weekly for a podcast about video games. Mostly.